Steve, one of my first thoughts when I was watching this film was, why on earth haven't I heard this story before? When did it first come to your attention, and what was it about it that made you want to devote your time and energy to it, to make 12 Years a Slave?
Well, I had the original idea of an African American who had been kidnapped and dragged into slavery, but that's all I had, and I was trying to develop something, and it wasn't going very well. And then my wife said to me, "Why don't I look into first-hand accounts of slavery?" And she found this book called 12 Years a Slave. And what happened was, when I read the book, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that I hadn't read this book before in my life, and I was very upset with myself not knowing the book. But then I realized no one I knew the book, so it became my passion to make this book into a film.
I was really deeply affected by the film. That everyone stayed in their seats afterwards at the screening that I was at, and there was a sort of a hushed silence, I think, where everyone was sort of taking it in, and that feeling stayed with me in the days and weeks afterwards. I just wondered how gratifying it is for you as a filmmaker, as an artist, to have such an impact on people with your work.
Great. I mean, you know, the fact you can the fact that people can still be touched is great. Often, in this case, you don't think that can ever happen, just because, you know, our everyday lives are so full of images and so full of information. But it's great to pierce someone's armor.
I think one of the things about it for me that made me have that reaction was that it doesn't feel distant. It doesn't feel like a period piece. It feels very immediate and very real. I guess that was something that you had in mind with the performances and with the cinematography, the look of the film as well, for it to feel very naturalistic and in the moment.
It's very important, yeah. I think it's also, I mean, again, yes, I could only agree with you on the fact that for me it wasn't about necessarily a sort of 53, it was about now. And, you know, again, it's about the effects of slavery now as well.
We have to talk about your lead actor, Chiwetel Ejiofor.
Yeah.
You must have been enjoying his work, as we all have over recent years. What is it you particularly admire about him as a performer?
His stature. He has a certain stature, a certain sense of humanity, a certain sort of dignity, which I needed for him to hold on to through his sort of journey through this in a hostile, surreal, inhumane environment. So I needed him, basically.
And you're working with Michael Fassbender again after Hunger and Shame. What was your approach for the Plantation owners? It seemed to me that you were approaching them in a non-judgmental way.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think it's very important to do that because they're human beings. Of course, you know, what they do isn't pleasant at all whatsoever. It's horrific. But you have to look at it within the context, but also you have to look at it who these people are. I mean, you know, these people weren't particularly pleasant, but at the same time, they were not aliens, they're human beings. And in order to sort of make a film of interest, one has to portray them as humans.
And you obviously knew that Michael Fassbender was up for the role and was up to the challenge of it. Benedict Cumberbatch, the first time you've worked with him, what was that experience like?
Great. He's a real gent. He's a real gentleman. He's a real, you know, there's a certain kind of earnestness to him, which actually fitted the character in a way, and it was a wonderful guy to work with.
And Lupita Nyong'o, this is her feature film debut, isn't it, as Patsy, which is incredible to believe because she puts in such an amazing performance.
Tour de force.
Yeah. Can you tell us about why you cast her? Was it a big search to find her, and really what she brings to the table?
Well, we auditioned over 1,000 girls basically to play Patsy, and it was like looking for Scarlett O'Hara. It was really kind of difficult to find an actress. And then I came across Lupita on an audition tape, and that was it. And A Star Is Born.
Hans Zimmer's score, I think, is quite subtle in a way, but very haunting and moving. What were your kind of guiding principles for him, and what does the score add to the film, do you think?
It adds soul. It adds. It's almost like a lull. It lulls you because the audience is going through what Solomon is going through, and it's just a lull. You know, it's gonna be okay. It's gonna be all right. It just holds your hand for a moment before the movie continues. That's all.
There are some moments that are quite hard to watch in the film, and obviously rightly so. The whipping scene, the long lynching scene, but at the same time there's a lot of beauty in the film as well. How intentional was that juxtaposition of beauty and horror, I suppose?
It's life. You know, a couple of days ago I was taking my son to school, And he's 4 years old. 2 police cars zoomed by us, and an ambulance, went by us. I took him to school, and I usually go to my cafe afterwards. And outside my cafe, a 7-year-old girl was killed by a dustbin truck reversing over her. It was a beautiful day. The world is perverse. That's how it is.
You've received a lot of awards recognition, the Turner Prize as an artist, a BIFA and a BAFTA as a filmmaker. How gratifying is awards recognition, particularly for this film, personally and professionally to you?
Very gratifying, because you work so hard on something. Often it's the case, you don't get a pat on the back. So when you get a pat on the back, it helps us tremendously. But also it helps the picture that people go and see it. We're not a blockbuster. We haven't got a lot of money for promotion. So the fact that we've been nominated for these awards helps the movie still remain visual. Steve
McQueen, thanks very much.
My pleasure, thank you.